Hey guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Joey. Dominick Reyes fought Jiri Prochazka in the main event of UFC Vegas 25 and was brutally KO'd, spinning back elbow. I'm sure most of you saw it. But I wanted to talk about, could this be the end of Dominick Reyes? Because it's crazy how Dominick Reyes, last February at UFC 247, he was on the cusp of defeating the greatest of all time in Jon Jones. What an absolute amazing fight, back and forth, super close. A lot of people, majority of people said Dominick Reyes should have got the decision. I was in the minority. I had Jon Jones, but I could have seen the fight going either way. It was super close. And Dominick Reyes put on a performance of a lifetime. And he came up short in a decision. So that was his first loss ever, his first loss in the UFC. And a lot of people thought, okay, he'll rematch Jon Jones, potentially actually get the win that time. Or, obviously Jon Jones went up to heavyweight, or supposedly going up to heavyweight. He will fight for the vacant belt and potentially capture the belt. So it's insane that he is now on a 3-fight losing skid. Since losing to Jon Jones, he then fought Jan Blachowicz at UFC 253 and got TKO'd in the second round. Then he takes some time off, takes probably like 6 months off, I think it was, comes back this past weekend and gets brutally KO'd by your Jiri Prochazka. So now he's on a 3-fight. He goes from almost UFC light heavyweight champion and defeating the GOAT, Jon Jones, to now he's on a 3-fight losing skid. And he's taken a lot of damage in these last 2 fights. He didn't take a lot of damage in the Jon Jones fight. It was a back and forth fight, but no really super heavy shots landed. But in the last 2 fights, he has taken a lot of damage. I mean, Jan Blachowicz was just ripping the body, broke his nose, brutal TKO finish in that fight. And then we know how the Jiri Prochazka fight went. Brutal shots landed from Jiri and broke his nose as well and finished him with that nasty spinning back elbow where Reyes just landed flat on his face. And it's crazy to think, after this fight, I think a lot of people are going to say, could he potentially be cut by the UFC? And could he potentially even retire? I said in my pre-fight for this upcoming event, the Jiri Prochazka versus Dominick Reyes, I said in my pre-fight for that fight that Dominick Reyes was going to lose. I just didn't trust him. His nose injuries, he's had nose injuries since before the Jon Jones fight. And we've seen with other MMA fighters, Rory McDonald, there's other guys that you can name, I can't think of off the top of my head, that have had nose injuries. And just no matter how long they take off, the nose is just never the same again. Once they break it, it's just constantly breaking and breaking and breaking. And it appears that that's what's going on with Dominick Reyes. He's still a quality fighter, but I don't think he's going to be cut. Let me say that first off. But there is a history to show that he could be potentially cut from the UFC on a 3-fight losing streak. Very many people get to have 3-fight losing streaks and not be cut. But if you look back at the light heavyweight division, there's been some questionable cuts by the UFC, and I there's probably reasons you can say, okay, they cut him for this or that. But you have Ryan Bader back in 2016 that he was on a 2-fight win streak when he was cut from the UFC. And I know people are going to say, oh, Ryan Bader was boring and blah, blah, blah. He had only lost 1 out of his last 8 fights when he was released by the UFC. Then you have Corey Anderson, who was released in 2020, and he was only on a 1-fight losing streak, and he lost to Jan Blachowicz, who's obviously the current champion now. And he had only lost 1 out of his last 5 fights. And even the fight before that, he brutally KO'd Johnny Walker, who was UFC's big hype at the time. Then you have Phil Davis back in 2015. He was on a 1-fight losing streak and only lost 2 out of his last 6. And all these guys went to Bellator. So UFC has a history. I don't think they'll cut Dominick Reyes. Dominick Reyes is a super fun fighter. I think he's still an elite fighter. I was never super high on him, but I think he can be, a quality guy in that top 8 area, top 5 even. Light heavyweight is just starting to really expand into having a lot of new young talent. Alexander Rakic, Jiri Prochazka, and there's other guys that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. But there is a history, and I also think with Dominick Reyes taking all this damage, constantly breaking his nose, there's a chance he comes out and says, I'm done. I don't know how likely that is. I don't know Dominick Reyes, obviously. But we've seen guys get really down in the dumps about these nose injuries. I know Rory McDonald took a while off with his nose issues. And another example I want to give you is Joel Romero was cut by the UFC. And I know that's middleweight, but still same process. And this is actually even more similar to Dominick Reyes than the other examples. He was on a 3-fight losing streak. He had lost to Whitaker, Costa, and Adesanya. Whitaker and Costa fights were super good and super close. Easily could have won either one of them. Adesanya was a title fight, and it was a terrible fight, but either guy could have won, truly. But it was a terrible fight. We were all losers with that fight. So there's another example. So we have no idea what the UFC is going to plan to do. And you see Dominick Reyes coming off a 3-fight losing streak, absorbing a lot of damage. They may say, okay, we're going to cut him. I doubt that. But also, again, Dominick Reyes could say, I retire. As far as what I think should happen to Dominick Reyes next, I think he should take, a substantial amount of time off, try to heal up, maybe a year, maybe, a little bit over a year. Some guys it takes a while to really heal, and he's just taken so much damage. And just to see him fall flat on his face and the way his neck landed, it was a scary knockout. I think maybe he could come back against, he needs a step back in competition. Anthony Smith may be available. He just beat Jimmy Crute. Usually the UFC likes to match up, people on losing streaks with other people on losing streaks so you can kind of get a guy back on track. They don't like to match up. It's not a hard rule, but they usually don't like to match up losers and then winners on winning streaks. And they usually like to match up winners with winners, So you have two guys on a 3-fight win streak, match them up. That's just usually what they do. There's probably, I off the top of my head, I can really only think of Anthony Smith right now. Maybe you could match. This might be too far of a step back, but if Jimmy Crute says he wants to fight soon, that it wasn't a serious injury with his leg, they still need to do more tests and everything. That could be a fight. Jimmy Crute might be out for a while, and Dominick Reyes can take some time off. Jimmy Crute's outside the top 10. They could fight, get Dominick Reyes back on the top track. But for me personally, also, I think this, and I mentioned this in my pre-fight again, I think this is the danger also in judging a guy off of one performance. Because Dominick Reyes, nobody ever really believed in him up until he lost. He lost to Jon Jones. Just because he put on an amazing performance in a losing effort, very close fight again, but a lot of people judged him just off that one performance. And maybe he's just not meant to hang with guys like Jan Blachowicz, Jiri Prochazka. That could be the case too. So give him a step back. Let's see if he can rebuild himself. Give him a less dangerous opponent. Because he's fighting straight killers, And before he started, on these last 3 fights against Jon Jones, Jan Blachowicz, and Jiri Prochazka, he wasn't fighting. I mean, he was fighting decent competitions. But just to give you an idea, his last win was against Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman moved up to light heavyweight and got slept by Dominick Reyes. And that was his performance to earn him a title shot. And I didn't think he personally deserved a title shot after that win because I'm not a big believer in Chris Weidman, let alone at Chris Weidman at light heavyweight. Before that, a split decision win over Volkan Ozdemir where I didn't think he looked particularly good. He beat OSP. Again, I'm not high on OSP at all. So it's like maybe he just wasn't meant to compete with these top, 5 type talents. But give him a step back. Let's see if he can rebuild himself. I hope the UFC doesn't cut him. I'm all in favor of keeping quality guys around, even if they never are going to be the champion. So I hope they keep Dominick Reyes around. I hope he doesn't retire. I just hope he takes a significant amount of time off and then comes back refreshed. After that scary knockout on Saturday, I don't want to see him in the cage for a while. So we'll see what happens. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.